Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening once again, and welcome back to day 2 of the virtual industry track for GeoWeek 2020. For those of you who weren't here yesterday, my name is Kamal Ramsingh. I'm the chairperson of ZASpace. ZASpace is our space and geospatial industry organization here in South Africa. And I really hope that all of you stay incredibly well engaged as we did yesterday, working through our networking, working through our exhibitions and the phenomenal speakers that we have lined up. We had just over 200 people spend the day with us yesterday, and we're absolutely looking to top that today. So thank you all for coming back, and thank you for joining us today if you're here for the first time. So we made some minor changes to the portal that you may or may not have noticed. We've added 2 time zones just to be sure. The South African Standard Time on the left, and right next to that, a GMT time. So if you need to just confirm what's going on, the timing, the sequencing, and so forth, you could use either relevant to the part of the world that you're at. And you'll also see that we reordered the talks. The day 2 is now on top. So if you're looking for some of the day 1 recordings for the on-demand, just scroll down a bit more, and you'll find the recordings from yesterday. Fantastic. So we have 2 amazing ladies getting ready to get us going today. The first is Miss Andiswa Mlisa, who is the Managing Director for Earth Observation at the South African National Space Agency, and who's been incredibly supportive, I might add, and mentoring us almost from a ZASpace point of view. We're going to meet her very, very shortly. Prior to joining the SANSA, the space agency in South Africa, Andiswa was with the Geosecretariat stationed in Geneva and responsible for the coordination of all the AfriGeos activities. So she's probably done some amazing things, and we're really, really looking forward, Andiswa, to hearing from you. Andiswa is going to arrive shortly, I would assume, right next to me, and she's about to arrive right now. Andiswa, welcome. Thank you so much for taking some time out from the Geo Plenary. We're really looking forward to hearing from you. So with that, I'm going to hand directly over to you to take us through your content.
Thank you very much, Kamal. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first Geo Virtual Industry Track and the second Geo Industry Track. And we are so sad that we're not hosting you in sunny South Africa, but however, we will save that for next year. Thank you so much for joining us online. Kamal, I quite appreciate the introductions, so I will not take up more of the time, and I'll go through my presentation today. So what I would like to look at is growth and inclusivity, and specifically in terms of how the space agency views this from an Earth observation perspective mainly. Maybe to kickstart in terms of those who haven't come across SANSA at all, and so South Africa does have a space agency, the South African National Space Agency. We have a number of programs, and we have quite a strong and healthy history when it comes to space. One of the things that's worth mentioning, because this year we've actually just taken another leap in that history, is since the 1950s we've been supporting NASA in terms of the ground station and the tasking and tracking of satellites. Recently, this year, we've actually entered into a cooperation with NASA for putting out a deep space ground station in South Africa, and I think that would be the 4th one in the world under the NASA flagship deep stations. Also, we've also seen quite another development within last year and this year, in that our space science capabilities, especially on the space weather side, have been awarded to being the regional space weather center in the continent. And this is in response to what the ICAO, which is the International Aviation body, has put up a policy that anything that flies must have space weather information to support its aviation. So SANSA was awarded the regional center for the space weather center. So these are quite exciting aspects. But most of you, of course, are here for Earth observations, because this is a group on Earth observations platform. I would like to start by saying, you know, we have with all the history on space, and especially from a geo perspective, we're coming to the second towards the end of the second decade of geo. It's quite amazing the amount of work that has been achieved in getting Earth observations used by society, in also building an industry and getting us to have a robust space industry. But one of the things that strike me is that if I look at the South African context, before we established the space agency, whilst we were busy with the policy and the strategy, we had looked at what are the requirements, especially from a government, because we established as a strategic partner for government. What are the user requirements from a government side? What are the pain points that government would like to see addressed, especially from a space perspective? In the country, we talk about the triple challenge of inequality, poverty, and unemployment. Of course, that encompasses a whole lot of things in just those three views, if you look at the developmental agenda of the country. But if I look at what we have been able to do so far, I would say that in terms of the insights that can be drawn from Earth observations, we haven't moved that much. There's still quite a lot that needs to be done. So we do need to continuously look at how we can evolve the space and how we can evolve the way we work, especially what is required to make sure that we meet the demands of our users. In particular, in our case, government as being the main user. So one may consider that if we look at creating shared value for industry, you would know that there's a whole lot of talk about industry, not only private sector, not only looking at the economic bottom line, but also looking at the environment, but most importantly, looking at the society in which it's wanting to serve. I don't believe that the space industry is any different in terms of what's going on with business. But when we're talking about shared value, we can also look at, as government, how do we make sure that we change the modus operandi where we're more focusing on putting regulations and trade-offs as a mechanism of engaging with industry, but actually look at more of a shared value approach. And this is where maybe the thoughts around clusters, formulating space clusters and so forth comes in, because you're looking at an ecosystem approach. So one of the considerations, if we talk about the value of data, but I want to actually start with, if we take this challenge we've had of drawing the insights from Earth observations and making sure those insights are drawn and are used by decision makers to improve the quality of life of our people, then we need to start looking at this in a different way. So the space agency, we've known it as trying to do the full value chain, but we're now saying we cannot achieve this alone. We actually need to be partnering with industry. So when we're talking about innovation and products and coming to market, what the space agency is now looking at is how we could partner with industry to make sure that we facilitate and enable the sector to be able to deliver the innovative products and services downstream. If you consider the last mile, it is absolutely not possible for an entity like a space agency to actually reach the last mile, to be supportive of those who support the farmers, to be able to tell the farmers when they should plant and when they should be ready for harvesting, and where fertilizer is needed in their field. So this partnership around making sure that we take up the value of open data that has quite shaped in a way the growth of the industry, because without access to open data, industry would have to put money on the table in order to come up with, to do their research and to come up with innovative technologies. So the value of open data becomes one of the critical elements that we're needing to look at, which then feeds into the innovative products and services that then takes us to addressing the the needs and requirements of government and society as a whole. One of the interesting aspects when we're talking about the value of open data is that if we know the value that we've received from Landsat being open, from CBUS being open, and now we've got Sentinel data, which the improvement in the resolutions of those open platforms has come to play. And one of the questions that we're starting to ask is what does this mean in the long run? Because we still have the data that comes from the private entities being at cost, and this is your high resolution data most of the time, but because traditionally the space agencies have been looking at, let's call it your low resolution data, but with the Sentinels and some of the missions that are being planned, the space agencies will also start playing into the high resolution field as well, which means this data is also going to start becoming available to industry to build their research and also to build some of the products. Also, space agencies have focused most of the time in building big satellites, whether it's your weather satellites or your EO terrestrial satellites. But now there's a move within the space agencies to actually build smaller satellites, and also this move also means that there's a bigger focus on procuring from the industry, both from a data side, but also from the acquisition side for building the satellites themselves. For South Africa, one of the programs we had from procuring from the industry was our what we call a government license, which enabled the government to negotiate with the data providers, and anyone in government get to have access on that, which means we play into the economies of scale. But it also meant that any industry player who's doing work for government also gets access to that data set. Having been in private sector myself at the time when this deal was made, it made a huge difference in terms of the service that we could actually provide to government, because now when we're writing our proposals and wanting to incorporate Earth observations in those proposals to government, we could actually do that without the fear of having the huge costs that were associated with the introduction of satellite data. When we talk partnerships, today is one of those is a good example of that, because without geo opening up its doors, it's again this element of us saying we better create this ecosystem in order to service humanity. So the geo platform and the engagement with private sector is one of those platforms that we cry on to say this is an area for convening, but it's also an area for us to create a partnership that could reach the last mile. But we're also needing these partnerships to show inclusivity. So in South Africa, we talk a lot about transformation, and now everyone talks about diversity. But for me, and with the conversation I was having yesterday, we're going to say, but without inclusivity, none of those things actually make sense. And it's the same thing with the ecosystem approach. Without inclusivity, it doesn't mean much. So the whole idea around geography, generation, and gender becomes critical. So as we are asking ourselves these, we're also requiring that industry also ask themselves this question. So when you're coming to partnering with us, we will also be looking at what is your gender representation, what is your generation representation, and most critically, what is your geography representation, so that we try and bridge this digital divide between that is now we can see it within geography that the digital divide is there. So how do we actually start bridging that digital divide? So there's a number of instruments that I will not go through all of them because I think I've sort of addressed them already. If you take the platform like Digital Earth Africa, which is aimed at it's a public investment, if we can put it that way, but it's really tailored for making sure that industry can come in and play on that on that platform and develop solutions for the last mile. The Space Infrastructure Hub, which Didi Mboneni spoke about yesterday, is one of the flagship projects for SANSA going forward. And even with that, we're talking about co-creation with the space industry in the country. We will also be launching in a couple of weeks what we call the Neo Frontier, which is a research and development and innovation fund. This is in partnership with the Department of Science and Innovation, and the aim behind it is to fostering these partnerships. And you would see that when we put up those calls, we're looking for consortia that make up of universities, the research councils, as well as the private sector, and also government or municipalities for beneficiation of those. The Space Tech Innovation is one of the flag events that we have every year, and it's quite great that actually that's going to be one of the features of today as well within the industry track, because without skills development, we really cannot get anywhere. This is also one of the things that I think is a strength for Africa, in that when we look at the population of this continent and how it's going to be looking like in the future, and we have this huge element of youth, things like the Space Tech, Space Tech Challenge, we're trying to tap into that youth capacity that we have and harness that for the benefit of the continent. One of the partners that we have in developing digital at South Africa is Catalyst. I only just found out that they've changed from PCI, they're now Catalyst. And they're one of our major partners for developing digital at South Africa, amongst other private sector players as well. And we would like to keep this partnership going. Thank you so much, Kamal.
Andiswa, thank you. Thank you. I was really getting into it there, so I'm sorry we had to cut you off with time. But whilst you're there, please, a question that is coming up so very often. I love what you mentioned about the 3Gs. I love that, the use of the 3Gs. The points you're making about the Space Tech Innovation Challenge, the average age in Africa, which we've got to leverage. The open data, I think, is a phenomenal start to enable industry to work with customers and government, not just the private and the public sector. But we still need to build the skills, attract new SMMEs, new talent into the industry. Is there a view from SANSA or as part of maybe the Space Infrastructure Hub on how you'd like to support that, to complement the open data?
Well, the Space Infrastructure Hub is geared towards making sure that we build the space capability in the country. So it's not just infrastructure flying on its own. And a huge component of that is when we're talking, actually even on the infrastructure side. So we're expecting industry to come in on that, because we're not going to be building those satellites ourselves. So I think the engineers are talking about 6 or 7 satellites, depending on what we come up with as an Earth observations community as the requirements. So for the upstream side, there's that's where we're looking for our industry to come and participate. But honestly, for me, I think the biggest value and the biggest area for growth for our industry from the Space Infrastructure Hub is on the downstream sector, because all those products and services that we're aiming to fund and develop will be done by our industry rather than being done by the space agency. We will just be the administrators of the program at the end of the day, and hopefully with that. We can support new entrants, and also we could support those who are already at play to grow and stay, because we also want them to stay.
Yes, stay and grow, 100% right. I think that sounds phenomenal. I think it's got to be a deliberate process of attracting new talent and nurturing those that are there. Andiswa, thank you so very much. Enjoy the rest of Plenary. We'll see you in the evening a little later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kamal.
Okay. Fantastic. That was Andiswa Mlisa, the Managing Director for Earth Observation at the South African National Space Agency. Coming up next is Ms. Rebecca Moore, who directs Google's geospatial initiatives driving environmental and social impact, including Google Earth, Earth Engine, and environmental insights. She initiated the development of the Google Earth Engine in 2009 as a planetary scale cloud platform. This is just phenomenal. I can keep reading this, Rebecca. Rebecca also conceives and leads the Google Earth Outreach Program, which is focused on supporting nonprofits, researchers, governmental institutions around the world. Fantastic, Rebecca. Thank you so very much for making the time to be here with us today. I've had a sneak preview of your slides. I think they are absolutely stunning. I'm looking forward to listening to the rest of your talk. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Kamal. And good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm coming to you from California. From the US, we're in the midst of a nail-biting election. I'm trying not to pay attention to it. I wanted to share with you some perspectives on, from our Google point of view, on how we think about democratizing Earth observation for sustainability broadly, in the sense of sustainable development goals, the intersection of planetary health and human well-being. Let's see if the slide advancing can work. Great. I want to start with a testimonial to GOES 16, GOES 17 NOAA satellites, which of course collect optical data as well as being able to detect what my team likes to call hot pixels. We have had many wildfires in California this summer, and with the GOES data, we were able to analyze it coming in every 10 minutes, I believe, and derive, using our Google Earth Engine platform, wildfire boundaries, which are updating in Google Search and on Google Maps now, just launched this summer, to help people stay more aware and stay more safe. This is a great example, I think, of wonderful use of public, open, free data for the private sector to be able to innovate upon and bring value to society. So thank you, NOAA. So as I mentioned, the cloud technology platform that we have been involved with is called Google Earth Engine. We started it about 10 years ago and launched it at the climate conference in Cancun. And our goal is to democratize access to petabytes of remote sensing data that are coming in from all sorts of sensors and satellites, and co-locate that with Google scale computation to be able to derive knowledge, insights, answers to questions that are societally important, and do that in a timely fashion with accuracy in a trustworthy manner. And this was in response to many requests from the scientific community when the Landsat archive was made free, and suddenly there were millions of scenes sitting on tapes that had never been fully analyzed or mined for their treasure trove of insights. That's when suddenly the need for something like massively parallel cloud computing made sense. It used to be that scientists would publish a paper on analyzing one Landsat scene. Matt Hansen, one of the scientists we work with, said he used to work with the data he could afford, not the data he needed. But once Landsat was made free and subsequent other data sets, it's really made it quite important that we have scalable computation for deriving those insights. So the Earth Engine platform is holds a very large public data catalog that we're updating in some cases every 10 or 15 minutes, certainly daily for many, many data sets, Landsat, Sentinel, and so on. We've got more than 35 petabytes of data, and we're updating it. We're adding about a petabyte a month. And again, the goal is to put this data at the fingertips of scientists, operational users, practitioners, decision makers, to be able to be better informed and make evidence-based decisions. So the key idea is to co-locate all of this data, whether it's optical, SAR data, different types of geophysical data sets, demographic data sets, together with thousands of computers in Google's data centers to do analysis. And when you have all that data, after we partnered with USGS and NASA to bring the entire Landsat archive off tape and online, and we made it publicly available for free to do analysis, we ourselves built a time lapse of the entire planet going back to 1984. And it's fascinating to browse. It's publicly available at earthengine.google.com/timelapse. And you can see like beautiful natural phenomena like the shifting sands off Cape Cod. But you can also see the human footprint on the planet, things like the expansion or the urban expansion of Las Vegas, while meanwhile Lake Mead was shrinking. You can see deforestation, retreating glaciers, development of irrigation in the desert. And so stepping back, what we've learned in terms of working with the UN and many governmental and NGO agencies is there is a gathering movement around partitioning the way we interact with the planet into three broad categories: to protect, to manage, and to restore. And each of these can be deeply informed by Earth observation data and obviously insights derived from that data. So I thought I would walk you through some examples of this. The first example of protect goes back to Matt Hansen, who created the first global scale high resolution map of forest cover and change back in 2013, powered by Google Earth Engine. It was a very good example of what the previous speaker was talking about of when public data is made open, then the private sector can innovate. And in this case, we could put it in the hands of the scientific community in a way that was very scalable and very easy for them to sort of turbocharge their science. It was 1 million hours of computation. It would have taken 15 years on a single computer, but because it was run on 10,000 computers in parallel, it took only 4 days. Again, though, interesting, getting back to what the previous speaker was talking about, that data used to be $600 a scene. I think that Matt Hansen calculated it would have been more than $30 million to produce his map if the data had to be paid for at those prices. Advancing beyond the science into the operational use, many of you may be familiar with Global Forest Watch, which is an online platform also powered by Earth Engine, which is doing near real-time alerting and various kinds of reporting to empower authorities, various kinds of decision makers to understand what's happening and to be able to take action. And it is having a meaningful impact. What's exciting to see is a community that builds and the network effects of more and more scientists being able to work with this kind of data at scale, being able to collaborate and to share their, not only share data, but to share their science, make their science open, make their applications open source, in addition to the original data being open. It's sort of a virtuous cycle. And in this case, there's a very nice example of Anup Joshi's team who used Google Earth Engine and Global Forest Watch to make a very positive determination about the potential to double wild tiger populations if meaningful protections were kept in place. And he told us that it would have been, what was it? He was able to get it done in less than a week, and it was these type of studies used to take much, much longer. What's exciting to see also is this kind of study is scaling up now recently in terms of protection. The Global Deal for Nature and the Global Safety Net were just published, and this is a spatially explicit map of which areas should be protected, preserved, in order to support both climate goals and biodiversity goals. So that's on the protection side. There's seems to be a groundswell of interest in restoration, thoughtfully planned, balancing restoration, i.e. tree planting, alongside thoughtful management and thoughtful protection. And a study was done by Crowther's lab, published in Science, Global Tree Restoration Potential. And this was the first global scale, high resolution analysis of the potential of every hectare on the planet, its potential for being able to be planted. And while there's various critiques of certain assumptions, which is not surprising with new science, there was a very positive result, a finding that a tremendous amount of carbon sequestration could be performed if such an action were taken. That science is now operationalizing into a platform that should be coming out soon, Restore.eco, that is a collaboration of Crowther's lab with WRI and many NGOs to actually put into practice, to advance the science, to improve the science, and then to put this into practice to help support meaningful restoration efforts on the ground. Now, if we get to management, and again, I'm sticking with forest as kind of a common thread through all this, we're seeing increasing adoption by governmental agencies that are responsible for natural resource management to move onto the cloud, where they're able to perform management tasks much faster than were possible before. In some cases, things that were not even possible to do in any meaningful amount of time. There's a recent announcement that just came out several weeks ago with Google and Unilever. It's exciting to see that Unilever is really leaning in on adopting the use of Earth observation data and kind of best practices in terms of technology associated with that to drive deforestation out of their supply chain and really create a sustainable sourcing for palm oil and other commodities. They shared with us some of the early work that they're doing using Earth Engine to meet this commitment that they have made. So, for example, we're seeing here using analysis on various data sets to derive tree canopy. This is looking at a time series of concessions, various information about the mills, and spatial relationships there. Zooming in on one of those, you can see that you can imagine that understanding essentially the catchment, the timber of any particular mill would be very important if you're trying to sort out sourcing. One of the points they made to us was that it was very important to them that there was this ecosystem, no pun intended, around this cloud platform, Earth Engine, where there were scientists that were contributing fantastic algorithms, fantastic data sets. There were NGOs that were actively working and wanted to support them. And that kind of community of practice that can support someone like Unilever, whose products are used by 2.5 billion people every day, if we can collectively help them improve their sustainable sourcing by any significant amount, that's a very meaningful impact. And again, I think in this case, they believe it takes a village. One of the other recent innovations I wanted to share with you, this is sort of somewhat hot off the presses, is a new project we call Dynamic World, which is global land cover mapping using AI, remote sensing and AI. This is a collaboration with National Geographic and WRI. I go back to GEO's societal benefit areas, and if you look at so many of these, the land cover, land use is the base map for policy and action across these various sectors. And there has historically not been a fresh, high-resolution global map of land cover. We've had individual breakthroughs in things like forest and water, but not across land cover classes. And so this is the idea of the Dynamic World Project, which is based on Sentinel-2 data. And again, this is a shout out for open data. The fact that there's this fantastic multispectral 10-meter data, freely available, systematically collected, put in the hands of the public, allows us to contribute our technology alongside that to be able to create new derived open data products like the Dynamic World land cover maps. So we'd like this to be, high resolution, regularly at least annual, hopefully eventually seasonal. We are committed to these maps and data and the models that we build being free, open source, and easily accessible. We want to intend to leverage, and we already are, cloud computing, state-of-the-art cloud computing and AI to help countries have access to this better data to protect, manage, and restore their ecosystems. So just so quickly, first we needed a taxonomy. What are the land cover classes that are meaningful in terms of land management? WRI provided those for us, and you can see them here, 9 Tier 1 land cover classes. And then National Geographic worked with a number of experts and their explorers to take many millions of Sentinel-2 scenes and annotate them or label them with those land cover classes. We then fed those as input into a specially constructed neural network model that we had created and train that model to be able to draw inference on new scenes when those come in and map them, automatically map them. This is an example for New Zealand. You can see the different land cover classes. This is an area of Costa Rica. And again, this 10 meter per pixel is unprecedented at global scale. This is, now we are running this. We've run this now for more than 20 countries. We're running it over the entire globe. And the goal is to put this in the hands of countries in advance of planning for the convention on the COP on CBD, on biological diversity. Costa Rica is a leader. They are one of the first who is trialing with this map, with the Dynamic World product, working in support. UNDP is supporting them on the ELSA process to use this data to protect, manage, and restore their lands. There's a whole other section here on water, but I think I'm going to skip ahead in the interest of allowing a little bit of QA time. The gist of this is a project with UN Environment and the European Joint Research Center to do global high-resolution mapping of water, change in water over time for the last 32 years. So we have statistics for every 30-meter pixel on the planet. We're now using this to produce various maps and statistics for governments. Here, by the way, are the 10 water classes that we have derived. I know I'm going pretty fast here. Apologies. Just a treasure trove of information here in this data. And now we've put all the statistics, derived statistics, in the hands of UN Environment, and they're bringing it out to all of the member states. And this is in support of SDG 661, water accessibility, water availability. It turned out that 80% of the countries did not have the ability to report against that very important indicator. And now a significant number of them are going to be using this data to support their reporting. So finally, I would just say that we're very excited with Gilberto Câmara to announce a joint program of Google Earth Engine support for 32 projects to improve our planet with open EO data powered by Earth Engine. And we had a number of very, very strong applications. We picked 32 winners. I'm not going to make you read this eye chart, but we're super excited. One of them is actually South African environmental organization here on the right, protecting certain vegetation area. And another interesting one is with UN Environment, the Environmental and Climate Stress Index. Anyway, we're very excited to see these projects as they develop and to support them with the help of EO data science. So we very much value the partnership with GEO, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Rebecca, thank you. I should have mentioned thank you so much for waking up so early to make this call. So thank you for that. Thank you for that as well. That was phenomenal. No matter how many times you've seen it, the sheer scale at which Google executes its vision is truly compelling. So thank you for sharing that. I guess in the spirit of democratization and maybe following on from what you shared with us on those 32 projects, how can we look to Google to help us stimulate new entrants from an SMME point of view with such a wonderful platform, such awesome data partnerships? What is the thinking on bringing new entrants, particularly on the African continent from our perspective right now? How would you support us in doing that?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of work with NASA Surveyor. They're doing a lot of capacity development using Earth Engine. And we're seeing a lot of adoption because this kind of platform lowers the barriers to entry, because you don't have to stand up your own server and download software and find the algorithms and download the data, and it's all there at your fingertips. And we now have we've made it available for free for non-commercial use for all these 10 years, and we have more than 200,000 researchers and NGOs all around the world doing amazing things. More than 5,000 peer-reviewed papers have been published. Now we're moving into a phase of making it available for enterprise use, things like Unilever, and we're seeing a lot of small businesses, for example, ag tech, people that are small business trying to work with Earth observation data to support smallholder farmers, let's say, in Africa, India, and so on. I think there is a lot of opportunity there for entrepreneurs to work with these kinds of technology if they have some bit of domain expertise, if they understand the problems on the ground, if they can be that knowledge bridge between the needs on the ground and what a platform like this offers. So there is a way to come to our site and indicate you would like to get access to that program.
Phenomenal. That's the call to action. I think that would be absolutely fantastic. Thank you once again, Rebecca. Look forward to chatting further. Thank you very much. Very good. I trust everybody really enjoyed the content for that. We are running a little bit behind the original schedule, but where we're at right now, the agenda for the rest of the day will pop up. We've just done the plenary. We've heard from Andiswa and from Rebecca. And there'll be a short break before we cross over into expert talks, and in parallel with that, the introduction to the next 3 SMMEs from across the world. And we have somebody from Kenya, somebody from Italy, and somebody from Canada. So I'm looking forward to introducing them to you in the next few minutes. Until then, have a bit of a leg stretch, grab some coffee, choose the stream that you want to look at, or toggle between the two if you'd like, and we'll see you in a few minutes. Thank you very much.